Oh.
Our AV guy was not getting you there for a moment.
Oh, well, we got 2 thumbs up now, so welcome to everyone on YouTube and streaming live. Thank you. The first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next up is roll call. Clerk Leslie will tell you when.
Please go ahead and log your attendance. There are 10 members present tonight.
Excellent, thank you. The next item on our agenda are proclamations. I'm not going to read them, but we did proclaim June 19th as Juneteenth in the city of Wasa, and we also proclaimed June 20th, 21 as World Refugee Day. You can read those on the website if you are so inclined. The next item on our agenda, pre-registered citizens for matters appearing on the agenda and other public comment. I have 2 people registered. The first person I have is Gary Gisselman. You have 3 minutes. You know the drill.
Gary Gisselman, 319 Park Avenue, Wausau, Wisconsin. I come to the City Council this evening to speak against the development at 1200 North River Drive. When I voted for this, all of this land many years ago, I had hopes that there would be some green space available in this land. But now, as you see the map in front of you in the packet this evening, there's not much green space left. A lot of parking lots, a lot of development, a lot of high-end, very expensive housing and other types of development that were paid for by, the land was paid for by the citizens of the city many years ago and continues to be paid for. But unfortunately, they really don't get a good chance to take advantage of this land. What they get is 10 feet of asphalt along a riverbank, and that's pretty much it. You'll see a lot of parking spaces, a lot of development, a lot of expensive development, and I think that we should send this back to economic development or wherever it came from and look for more public space. Public space has been very important in the city of Wausau, and I think that we should take an opportunity in this land to acquire some for public space. We have a great playground at the north end of this space, but I think we can do a little bit more for the citizens of the city of Wausau. In many EPA grants, a lot of words were spoken with regard to green space, affordable housing, and we're not seeing any of this in this kind of development. So I would think that we can maybe take a look at this a little bit finer and get some public space in this development. How much time do I have?
1 minute.
Can I speak to another point?
You can.
I think that the city attorney's office and the mayor's office should be looking at ways, maybe agendizing committees, boards, so that members of the city council can attend standing committees or whatever other committees without being asked to leave because they may constitute a quorum of another committee. I think that the citizens expect a lot from the city council, and I think the city council members work hard at trying to get as much information as possible, and sometimes that information is at standing committees or other boards or other committees. So I would think that the city of Wasa could find ways of agendizing that kind of an agenda with regard to the open meeting law. With that, thank you.
You were exactly 3 minutes. You're a pro. Thank you. Next person I have is Pat Snyder. If you could state your name and address for the record, you have 3 minutes.
I'm a politician. 3 minutes is too short.
Good luck, man.
Pat Snyder, 129 Charles Street, Schofield. I'm here not as a citizen of Wausau, but as a representative of the city of Wausau down in Madison. Recently, I toured the 3M plant in Wausau, and it's quite an amazing endeavor if you've ever had a chance to go there, and I don't think you have. They have told me they have invited you to come out and see their plant and see the operations for it. And the reason I'm bringing this up is that there is some land just south of Thomas that Colby and Colby owned that they were thinking of purchasing as additional space to house empty rail cars. They go through about 30 rail cars a day, but they could go up to 60. And this would they would take care of any kind of EPA problems that comes from the ground. They would also make sure there was some type of berm or barrier, any housing that's to the east of that area. And, you know, with the supply chain going around the nation kind of being slowed this bit, they can process from the mine to the finished product in 24 hours. And these cars would be empty. There wouldn't be any kind of chemicals or anything like that in it. And I just think that in order for them to operate at the optimum capacity, to consider letting them have a little land to be able to store some additional rail cars. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that is all I have for pre-registered citizens. Next up, we have our Core Values Award presentation from the Fire Department. Really excited about this.
I am too, Mayor. Good evening, members of the council and those visiting and those online. Tonight's a great night for Wausau Fire as we lift up one of our own. We have a variety of awards that we can award inside of our department for different things. If you recall, 2 years ago we were here awarding 4 of our members for act of valor that occurred on the day of the cemetery shooting. And we've not had another award nomination since that has been passed on. And so it's been a while since we've been here for awards. It's something that we hope we can increase doing, but we definitely have a worthy candidate tonight. And I'm here to kick off the presentation to Shane Wooler, engineer paramedic with Wausau Fire Department, for a Core Values Award for professionalism and meeting our mission statement. And this is from a fire that occurred on Christmas Eve of 2020. It was a notable fire in the news and on social media, so maybe you recall it. And it was actually occurred at the Twerberg home, and we have them here tonight if you want to step forward and say a few words. The order here will have the Twerbergs come forward and say a few words about what occurred that night. They did not know what had gone on that night about Shane, and I'll highlight that. I'll let Craig Cruzan highlight that when he steps to the microphone to present the award. But they can speak to what occurred that evening with their home and the service that we provided for them. So Andrea and David, thank you.
Thank you. So I'll be brief. I just first want to say that until something like this happens to you, you really don't know. And I'm sorry I'm emotional. It's been 9 months and I'm still emotional. You really don't know what these firemen go through and put their lives at stake, even when they have their own families at home. So I am just grateful to every single one of them, not just the ones that were just at our fire, but in any fire that they attend to. They did some special things for us that we found notable. Being Christmas Eve, of course, we had all of our presents under the Christmas tree. And being the professionals that they were, they actually were able to save every single one of our Christmas presents. They moved them off, covered them, and little bit of water damage, but we still had every single present saved. We even were a couple of firemen, and I don't recall who they were, but they came over Christmas morning even and helped us move every single one of the Christmas presents to our vehicles so we can take those with us. We did unfortunately lose a pet, a 16-year-old cat. However, they were very respectful. They wrapped her up in a blanket and actually laid her on a pet bed downstairs for us. So that I really just want to thank every single one of them that was on site and helped us through it. Dave, I don't know if you want to say anything.
No, well, just to add that I don't remember Shane. I'm sorry. It was a very hectic night, but thank you so much. Thank you to all of you. Really, my wife, if I could echo it, and I'm getting emotional too. Because it was really great. Thank you guys. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'm going to present, or have Craig Cruzan come up to do the award presentation. Craig is the battalion chief of Sea Crew, and it was his crew that was on scene that night. He was not at the fire, but he can speak to the circumstances surrounding Shane's nomination for the award, and also highlight some of the other things that occurred that night. So, Craig Cruzan.
So I know some of you, I don't know all of you, but I'm here to speak a little bit on behalf of Shane. Shane's been a heck of a guy since he got hired. He's always been the guy to ask questions, because he always wants to get to the bottom of it. He doesn't want to know just how to do something. It's always how and why. Why are we doing it this way? How can we do it better? He's always been a person like that. So it was really no surprise to me when last year he approached me and said he wanted to get even better. He wanted to grow up, wanted to be apprenticing in engineer and lieutenant. Shane was a firefighter at the time, firefighter rank. So his next step, which was coming up, was engineer. So we tried hard, and due to lower staffing levels, we couldn't get him in a ton, but we were able to get him apprenticing as engineer and maybe once or twice as lieutenant. So lieutenant is a whole nother story. You're in charge of that company, you're in charge of that crew, and there's a lot of work to go with it. A lot of different work, stuff that he wasn't quite used to, that he's seen but hasn't had to quite perform yet. So on December 24th, I was fortunate enough to be able to get that day off to be with my family, which also led Shane to his first shot at this. So when he walked in that morning, he was expecting to be an acting engineer. So a bump up role, one that which he was still learning. To his surprise, they said, "Hey, you're it. You're on the live seat. You're going officer today." So when I stopped in a little bit later that day to drop a few things off, I bumped into Shane, and he had a little bit of excitement in his face. He had had a great morning with a bunch of calls where he got some great experience, and you could tell he was really loving it, just living it up, and doing well at it. So later that night, I had gone. I was at my brother-in-law's. My phone goes off that there's a structure fire. So knowing that we're a little shorthanded, it's Christmas Eve, and typically when there's a structure fire, I'll put the radio on and see if it gets bad. I know they'll be calling in for extra help, and I was able to go in if needed. I heard Shane calling her out right away, and I thought, holy cow, that's quick. Come to find out, he was on another run coming back, and on the CAD system, on the computer in the engine, it popped up structure fire. He had instructed his engineer, let's get going right away, so he had beat the tone out. He was already en route before the fire department even was paged. So when he arrived on scene, I'm thinking, oh, here we go. I hope you do well, I'm just hoping for the best. And in the most calm, clear, and professional voice you could imagine, someone that sounded like he's been doing that job for 15 years, he was able to give a first-in report, tell exactly what was going on, tell everybody what he was going to do, and tell the next group that was coming in what he needed them to do. I was just dumbfounded. I couldn't believe how well that sounded and how well it went. So after listening for a few minutes, it was very apparent that they were able to take care of that job in a quick hurry, which resulted in saving a lot of things. So due to his actions and the other members on duty that night, they were able to save those Christmas presents that were spoken of. Unfortunately, they did lose the pet, but they tried, and they did everything they could with very light staffing, and the outcome was still incredible. So on behalf of the Wasa Fire Department and C Shift, if Shane could come up, I'd like to present you with your award for core values. Congratulations. Great job.
I don't have too much to say. Just wanted to. Oh, I don't have too much to say. Just wanted to thank the department for the nomination and the award. It wasn't just me that night, even though I'm the one being recognized. It was a lot of individuals that are here that was all part of a team effort. So I'm just proud to be a part of that team with Wasa Fire Department and serve the city of Wasa. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Wow, Craig, that was a powerful speech. That was great, and I think that speaks to our whole department. We talk about that all the time. It's the maturation throughout your career of people who have been there and have been educated and have the experience investing in the people who are coming on board. And it's a constant evolution cycle. I stand in awe of it every day to watch it. And this is, realize that in 2020 we did, near 6,800 calls for service, and we've identified one and handed out one award for 2020. I think we could have handed out probably 6,800 because if you come to the stations sometime, make sure you pause at the bulletin boards that are in the stations, because there's individual notes from individual members of this community that want to reach to that firefighter or that paramedic that helped them in their time of need and their time of tragedy and make that personal connection. Yesterday we had a gentleman that came down with our chaplain. He goes to the church where our chaplain pastors. We've transported him 3 times. 2 of them were resuscitations, pulseless non-breathing, and due to the equipment that we were on board and some of the new training we've done, he is up and walking, no brain injury, fully functional, and we've resuscitated him twice. That's not a club you want to join. But I stand there, and we had an opportunity for him to meet 4 of the paramedics that have treated him on the 3 of the different calls. And it's an amazing thing to sit back and watch in awe of. It's just, this community supports our department in ways that are both tangible and intangible, and you may just see a fraction of it here in the community. I hope that this is seen in the public, that we've lifted up one of our own, because when we lift up one of our own, we lift up the entire organization. And I think we probably need to do a lot more of it. But I thank a thankful community to us and all that they do for us. So I'll step away. Congratulations, Shane. And thank you for the Torbergs coming tonight. I know it's emotional, it's difficult, it's raw, but we greatly appreciate you coming forward. And thanks to Sea Crew and all those that were there that night that helped. So thank you.
Thank you so much. This is why we do it. So thanks for reminding us. All right. Next up, kind of anticlimactic, we have our consent agenda. It's file number 210601 through file number 210108. I would entertain a motion. I have a motion by Neal and a second by Peckham. I think not seeing anyone ready to talk. So
Please vote. Motion passes 10-0.
thank you. All right, we are now on to file number 210703, mayor's appointments. We have appointments to the Wasa Affordable Housing Regional Task Force. Sarah Watson, Sandra Kelch, Julie Burkmeyer, Diane Senholtz, Ben Lee, Kristen Slonsky, and Carla Baker. And also an appointment to the Capital Improvement Program Committee of Carolyn Marole. I would entertain a motion. A motion by Wadinsky, second by Herbst. Alder Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. I had emailed you this afternoon, and I guess as not having received it until today, I don't feel that it has given us proper time as a committee to review. I'm also disappointed that there was not resumes, as well as indication about what kind of background people have in this field of affordable housing. For myself, I consider this task force that should be as quality as when the county jail went through their major crises and really improved their processes and looked at everything. And in my opinion, from the information that was provided, it is insufficient. We should be having the best of the best as part of this committee, and without resumes showing more details about how they relate to affordable housing, in what role, how many years, how many decades, I think we can do a lot better. And so I'm recommending that we, at this point, go ahead and table it and get more information and potentially other candidates that have more credentials and more experience to make this really top hierarchy of expertise. And at this point, I just don't think these members are capable to do the same kind of work as what happened at the county jail committee level. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a request to table. Is there a second by? I'm not seeing a second, so I think,
Well, before we get there, there's a difference between tabling and postponing indefinitely. What are you suggesting we do? Tabling is to take up urgent matters that need to be decided, but then we would still be then discussing this agenda item today. So if you're not suggesting that we just take this up today, you would be postponing either at a specific time or indefinitely.
I would say indefinitely at this time. We need to get the best of the best and work in on housing, affordable housing for the city of Wausau. And again, from the information that was shared with us today, not a week ago, and no resumes, no indication of what their background is in affordable housing, on what level, how many years, how many decades in this area in Wausau, I feel it's insufficient and that we should continue to recruit, but also that the candidates that are listed there could update their information so we really can understand what expertise they have in this area. Thank you.
okay, so we have a request to postpone indefinitely. Does anybody second this? All right, I'm not seeing any. Is there any further discussion? I think we're ready to vote on the appointments. Alder Ryan.
From my background in working in affordable housing in the area since 2000, I do respect Julie Birkenmeyer. I also have been aware of Sandy Kelk and Ben Lee. But again, Sandy is a citizen consumer advocate. Ben is actually working for the United Way and should not be considered a citizen advocate. That's his position. Christine, I don't know what her role is. I thought she's executive director for Wisconsin Juvenile Care, so that I don't know if she is working on the day-to-day of housing discrimination or taking cases to court for potential infractions or taking tenants to court for overdue rent or that kind of thing. Diane Senholz, I have for myself, as well as talking to other housing coalition advocates, other clients that have been there, that she is a poor choice. If it was Jeff Sargent, the previous director, I would say wholeheartedly, but that, and I think if you got some other survey input, you would find that she is a poor choice. And then I guess with the last minute addition of Carla Baker from Jefferson Street Inn, what is her background in that area? Again, it should be all someone that has affordable housing expertise, preferably for decades, that can speak on this. And in my opinion, having the Jefferson Street employee kind of maybe wanting to influence what is downtown that's affordable housing is inappropriate. So again, I think these nominees, with the limited information that we have, which is virtually nothing, that they just have the interest, I do not see them as being experts in this area where we would have much input or any good outcomes. So I really do think we should reconsider and spend more time on it and get the best candidates, the experts in this field. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to remind everybody that the information provided has been the same information that's been provided for other appointees for things like the policing task force and other task forces and committees that we appoint people to. So just so everyone knows, Alder Ryan.
In this area, I've been in affordable housing for over 20 years, so I want the best of the best. I may not have known these other people, but in my opinion, Mayor, You should be having resumes. There should be an indication of why they want to be in certain committees, so we're getting the best of our citizens. Thank you.
All right. Any further comments? All right, I think we're ready to vote.
Please vote. Alder Herbst. Motion passes 6-3.
Thank you. All right, we are moving on to file number 210705. It's an ordinance from SISM and Plan annexing territory from the town of Weston to the city of Wausau. That's Michael and Angela Grunman on Northwestern Avenue. I would entertain a motion. Motion by Martins, second by Peckham. Any discussion? I'm not seeing any.
Please vote. Motion passes 10-0.
All right, thank you. We are now moving on to file number 150708. A resolution from Plan Commission amending the general development plan at 1200 North River Drive to allow for 120 residential units and 6,050 square feet of commercial space in a planned unit development zoning district. I would entertain a motion. Motion by Neal. Second by Peckham. Any discussion? Alder Neal.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, this particular development proposal has been around for quite a while now, and it's gone through some permutations, and I think what we have is an extraordinary potential for this city and for that part of town, too. With regards to, comments about green space, I will draw attention to, the river walkway, which extends for an awful long distance, that does include green strips and benches and trees and that sort of thing. And also the reclamation of Barker Stewart Island, which is ongoing right now as goats are out there literally chewing the scenery. That is immediately, basically adjacent to this area via a pedestrian bridge, bringing more recreation opportunities for citizens going downtown and in the River Life district. So it's things like this kind of development that provide that tax revenue over years, which is going to help us achieve so many more things along the river and elsewhere in the town. Can't understate the value of this development and what it's bringing to our city. So I thoroughly support it and have for quite a while now. I hope everybody sees the value and importance of it as part of our strategic direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Larson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First off, I want to echo something I believe I heard from Alder McElhaney, and is this the best we can do for our city? Is by putting more apartments down there? I mean, we've already got 3 apartment buildings down there. Do we need 3 more? I mean, I sort of agree with what Gary said. Let's get creative with what land we have down there. We need a community center. How about an aquatic center? I would like to see the data. I would like to see some data if can the community support another 120 of these units? Are the ones that the city built already, are they full? And I guess another thing that the planning committee, one thing that isn't in here, I mean, if you're going to plan this kind of thing, they also forgot, maybe it's not supposed to be in there, but are they still asking for the $2.5 million from the city taxpayers to build this, or is the contractor putting these up on their own? This was not in the packet, and it was brought up that, I believe at other meetings that they were asking for a $2.5 million donation. And if that is the case, I would like to know where that money is going to come from.
Okay, so I'm going to try and answer your question. I see that Brad and Marianne are on here. So what we're voting on right now is the Plan Commission recommendation that we move forward, and the development agreement will come before you later. Brad, do you have anything to add?
No, you're right about that. I mean, this is just the zoning part of it. It's part of the planning process that we need to go through. The incentive package is still out there and being negotiated, and some of it depends on whether this goes through tonight or not. So that will be coming back through the Economic Development Committee once some of those terms are finalized and it's ready for review by the ED committee and then on to council after that. So it's still in the works.
Okay. All right. Are you, okay, thank you. Alder Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. From my understanding in talking to a resident of East Hill just in the last few days, 40 units went from being affordable housing in the original renovated East High School, and that those are gone now. They're gone to market rate. And I do think we as a council can start looking at ways to make affordable housing along the riverfront. From what the mayor has previously stated about the plans for the Wasa development, there's no plans to be affordable housing, but in my opinion, that should also be included. And then from what their plans are for this development by Mr. Wall, it does seem that there's not adequate parking. And for the actual housing mix, is there any planned type of little dog park or children's area? And that it does seem like they're kind of overbuilding. So to cram more things in at a higher price. And we as a council need to start looking at how we are going to help get more affordable housing units. I recently was at the downtown at the landing where Officer Lemeron spoke and said our community needs 3 more Riverview towers of affordable housing. That's 149 units times 3. And when are we going to start looking at the needs of our residents that are not wealthy, that are marginal, that are living in poor housing and can't afford these high market rents? They are the backbone of what we do, of what employees we need in order to keep businesses running. So I do think we need to table it for now and look at what options we plan on doing with both this area for affordable housing units, and I'm hoping in the near future with WAS so that we have affordable housing units where the former Wausau Center Mall is. Thank you.
Alder Wodinski.
Regarding this development, this is only one of the first stages, of course, but I think we have to look at where's the city of Wausau going to get its biggest bang for its dollar? Where are we going to raise the funds to build the community center, low-income housing, remediate pollution in the community? If we want these things, we have to pay for them, and we need a facility or a space that's going to have a high tax base to help pay for some of that stuff. I agree, green space is important. We need to look at alternatives to keep the green space going for the people that want to use it, but I also have to look at all the residents of the city and say, how can we keep your taxes in check and still provide the services and all the other things that we want for the community? Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Killian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd start by saying, I thank all of the developers. I believe there were 2 on this who submitted proposals to developer groups, and I know it takes a lot of time and effort to put those together, so I thank them both. That being said, I had supported the proposal from local developers that was of a smaller scale and also involved less in municipal subsidies. And I had asked them and addressed them, those local developers, when they were presenting their proposal about how flexible they may be in terms of concerns from the council or the community on some of the issues that had been raised. And my understanding is the response is they would have been highly flexible. So I had supported that proposal. I did not support this proposal. And I feel, to the citizens' points earlier tonight, that would have better met some of those needs of the community in terms of scale and so forth. To Alder Larson's point about finance, and even though this funding may be a later step in this process, it is, regardless, I think, an important consideration. And when it comes to TIF and subsidies and so forth, I think it's important that the community understand that by the time much of these financing schemes mature to the point that they are beneficial in terms of incremental financial value for the city and the taxpayers, most of us are going to be quite old, I would say. So in terms of meeting any immediate needs or needs in the near future from incremental returns, I do not think with these types of financing schemes that we really see that. And we can note just in our current situation that many of these subsidized developments have not brought us to the financial place that I think we would like to be in terms of taxes and so forth. So in terms of keeping taxes in check, I believe that's a good objective, but I believe that the city has not been able to do that successfully. And also that, yes, the return on investment for the taxpayers again, is quite far down the road. So I think it's important they understand that. And I think the citizen earlier tonight who brought up some of the points about green space and scale and the amount of public money that was involved in this endeavor from the start, I think when we're dealing with this type of public money, we must be dealing with a proportionate amount of public good, and tax revenue, in my opinion, does not meet that category of public good in this instance. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder McElhaney.
Thank you. I am voting for this tonight, and I will tell you why. In incremental, I agree with Alder Wodinsky. We want to bring about maybe a community center, maybe an aquatic center. We put in millions in that park. And it's interesting because that park, which is a green space, I hear a bunch of complaining about an ice cream stand. That's brought up quite frequently by some of these alders who now want an aquatic center. So we do things for our constituents that they want. Here's the thing. A fire truck costs $1 million. We know that. We're purchasing one. What? We have that, okay? We want to do affordable housing. Affordable housing does not give tax base, so that shrinks our overall tax base, but yet we have $1 million fire truck. So we have two different ways of doing that. We either increase tax base or increase people's taxes. Our budget is not static. Our budget continues to go up because we have increased salaries. We need to pay our police, our firemen. As the city grows, so does our needs grow. Roads are going up exponentially. How much is it to make a mile of a road? We have infrastructure issues that we need to do. All of this, we are just getting into CIP again. All those, it is the most futile thing that we look at because we can't catch up, because we can't keep loading it on people's backs on taxes, but yet there's a limited amount coming in. So there's only one way to do it is increase tax base. And that's what this does. Is it something pie in the sky far away? Maybe. But I will point to our 9% reduction in mill rate this last budget. And Marianne, I think is on, correct? We took down by 9%. And Marianne, I'd like you to quickly ask, was that due to closing a TID district?
Just take 1 second.
Yes, it was a combination of increase in growth and the closure of the TID, yes.
Okay, so we have actual results. And I will be the first to say, I have voted against increasing TID districts. I voted against Great Lakes Cheese. I have. But it has worked out. Will everything work out the way we absolutely hope? I don't know, but I certainly hope so. But I want affordable housing. And I want that, but that needs tax input. That isn't coming. We're not going to find people to come and build with these kind of building rates and then rent for this much. It has to have tax infusion. It has to have grants. It has to have, those kind of things. And we can't find that unless we increase our tax base. Otherwise, our residents are going to be taxed out of their homes. And we don't want that either. So it shouldn't be an either or. And that's what's frustrating me. It's always either we do this or we do affordable housing. Either we do this or we do high end. We need to do both. And they work together. They are in sync with each other because it's the tax base that goes up and then we can do things with that extra levy money that we want to do to help our citizens that are in need. So I'm going to vote for this, and this is just the first step. I'm hoping we can certainly push back and not, involve a lot of reverse TID. But what we do, we do. We do it we look to our professional staff and sharpen their pencils, and we look to our outside accountants and our outside legal advice and tell us when we think that payback is going to have, and then we make our decisions. But I guess I don't want people to think that nothing ever comes of these, because there are good projects that have made our taxes go down. And, it isn't tomorrow, but it is coming. And that is giving us it gives us the ability to do the projects we want to do for our people. The last thing I want to say is about the green space. And I think that I have stated when I'm on ED and when both presenters were here, I asked about green space. I was concerned, and I'm sure I can be, you can look at the tape, and I said, exactly what Mr. Gisselman said. We all paid to clean up that riverfront. Every resident should be afforded ability to use that riverfront, not just the people that live there. And I don't want it to feel like somebody's front yard where we're kind of chasing through a yard. I want that to be open public space as much as possible. And I have been promised over and over that it will be, that the fire pit and everything is not going to be, the first person said, no, that would be the restaurants. And I don't want somebody to have to use a restaurant or pay a big money for a meal to use that fire pit along the riverfront. T-Wall said he would, and I will hold him to it, that this would be public space. So rest assured, City of Wasa, the City Council is looking out for you for public space. We're not looking to elbow you out of the riverfront. You own the riverfront. I own the riverfront. I'm not going to be living there, but I want it to be usable, and I will hold these developers responsible. And if it's not something to my liking, I will vote it down at the end. But I will be voting for this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. As part of something we haven't discussed much since hearing from the Biden administration about the American Rescue plan funds that we are getting about 14 million of, we designated, I believe, 300,000 towards the landmark. But those funds can be used for water and sewer upgrades, which definitely for our city, we do need that. But they can also be used as additional funding to potentially $1 million or more to instead of using TIF funds, to use it for developments that could be affordable housing. My concern is that we are building thousands of units of market rate, and we're building, well, the landmark will become officially, I believe, 90 or 95 units, but we lost 40 in East High, and so we're going backwards. And again, the really backbone of the city is our workers, those that are in the restaurant area and other service jobs, and they need affordable places to live. So there is ways of using the American Rescue Funds as a way to encourage some of these developers to offset that cost, but they can also apply for tax credits by going ahead and doing affordable housing. I'm not saying we're going to go 10 to 1 of wanting to build affordable housing, but you got to remember, we have dozens and dozens, and we don't even have Lockery building yet of what they're planning to do at 17th Avenue and Elm Street. So when you look at affordable housing, it's under 5% within the city, in my opinion. And we can use the American Rescue Plan funds, I would say, with very much consideration and forethought, because we also need those funding for water and sewer. But we can make some sensible decisions, and we don't have to increase TIF in order to do it because of these special funds that are time limited for the next 3 years. So I am voting no. Thank you.
Alder Peckham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think good remarks are being brought out here. I think one of the things we need to clarify is who's building these structures. There was a remark made tonight that the city is putting in these apartments. The city is not putting in these apartments. Private enterprise is putting in these apartments. We advertised for proposals for these parcels, and this is what we got. We got 2 very good, well-prepared proposals. They were closely examined, and I think we're all at the outset rooting for the local guys, but the individual whose proposal is before us at the moment came out to outshine what the local guys were ready to do. So I think that this is a very good use for high-value property. I think it would be, I don't know how it would ever work out to try to put affordable housing in that space, because as we're learning, affordable housing, in order to be affordable for the private enterprise person that we want to operate, we don't want to have, massive government underwriting of housing and taking all that on if we can help it. It needs to have low cost on, the initial front of the property value and the ongoing costs and everything else. They need to cut every corner they can in order to make these units affordable for the people that we want to help. And so trying to plop something like that on the riverfront would just be a mistake. So I think this has been well examined. I think it can add, maybe not on the first day, but it's something that in the future, we're very glad that we've added this tax base and this amenity to the community. There are going to be people living here who are going to be spending money in the adjacent restaurants and nearby offices and facilities and all the rest. So I think this is a good one, and we should vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Larson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Another thing I neglected to say earlier is is, and looking at it, at the details and the layout and stuff, I believe we're looking at another Thomas Street blinker project here, where we're putting too much in too little bit of a space. I can see there's not going to be enough parking there for, and it's just too much. And once again, I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, I would like to see some data on how these market rate apartments that we have financed through our TIF and whatever, what the vacancy rates are on them, if they are full, if the city can support another 120. I just saw on the news tonight, Schofield's up in their game now too. They're building along their dam out there. I believe they said they're putting 80 units in down there. You know, so we're in for a little bit of competition now. And another thing is, I think somewhere down the line, you know, when you start adding up what we're paying for the mall to tear that down and the new streets and stuff, and now with the with this projected $2.5 million we're looking at this project, and the potential of what the citizens are going to have to donate for downtown, I think we're just taking on too much debt. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm not seeing any more comments, so.
Please vote. Motion passes 7-3.
Thank you. All right, we are now on to the portion of our agenda where I'm going to ask you to suspend the rules. 6B, filing, and 12A, referral of resolutions. This does require 2/3 vote. I would entertain a motion. Motion by Neal, second by Killian.
Please vote. Motion passes 9-1.
All right, thank you very much. We are now on to file number 210706. It's a resolution authorizing the execution of an agreement between the City of Wasa and Barry Dunn McNeil and Parker LLC, doing business as Barry Dunn for professional services for strategic plan development and mission statement review. I'm just going to ask Nate a little commentary.
Yeah, so this has been reviewed by our office, by Tara, not me, but she has been giving me, I guess, the go-ahead and that everything is good with her legally.
Yep. So I guess I would entertain a motion before we start discussing. Motion. A motion by Watson, second by Peckham. Alder Peckham, I see you are ready to speak.
Yeah, I just wonder if you could get a little more information about Barry Dunn. I didn't see anything in the packet about them, where they're from, where they've done other similar plans, that kind of stuff. And I don't know if Mr. Lenz would have that up, who was involved in selecting them. I just wanted a little more information about them. They're getting a chunk of money here.
Right. So last year at this time, you'll remember we talked about a strategic plan. And so since then, we've put out an RFP, and we had 13 to 15 responses. We got a lot. And Barry Dunn was one of them. We had a review panel. It included Alder Watson, Alder McElhaney. I'm trying to remember everybody. We had Brad reviewed it, Mary Ann, the police chief, fire chief, Jamie from the Parks Department, and I can't remember if anyone else did, but I don't know, Mary Ann, if you have the details on where they're from. I believe that we have worked with them in the past, just incidentally. I found out after we selected them, but we went through the ranking process with all of the 13 to 15, and then we selected, gosh, I think we had interviews with 6 of them, and this was the one that came out overwhelmingly on top. But I don't know, Mary Ann, if you had anything that you would add.
No, just as you mentioned, they are currently helping us evaluate financial software. They've done a really good job of that as well. But I think they were the #1 pick of, everyone that participated in the evaluation. So.
Could I just ask, are they from Cronenwetter or the Twin Cities, or who are these people?
I'm not sure where their home office is, to tell you the truth.
Well, I know that they had people working from home, which kind of added to because we did all of these remotely. But one of the things that we liked about them is that they were willing to work with our local folks to do some community engagement. Particularly, I think maybe we have this in here, Yangi Lor, who will be helping with community engagement through her faithful consulting. So I'm wondering if Marianne's looking up.
I think their main office is in Maine.
Okay, Maine. Okay, I didn't see who pushed their button first. Oh, but Leslie did. Alder Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. I had looked them up online. They're from Bangor, Maine, though they may have other offices in the area. I guess I have expressed my concern in the past with review panels that we should have them independently done, not by staff, but outside review panel that are more experts in this area. And I think in past projects, we've kind of replicated what was done like in Boulder and Denver, and we're Wasa. We are a small town. And I would prefer to see what candidates were within Wisconsin that know Wisconsin, that know our tax rates, that know about what other cities are in the area, so that they can give a small town view of how to look at strategic planning and how to look at going ahead and getting rid of our mall and how to be looking at affordable housing. And my concern is, if we may feel good to have a big firm wanting to give us big ideas, but we can't afford big ideas. We can only afford small ideas and more in line with what the size of the city we are. So in my opinion, I'd rather have a table to see what other options there were for within Wisconsin or within the Midwest, because that's where we are. And we need to be realistic. And also, as part of this, whether WAS does go through and start developments, or they decide to sell the property to other developers, the downtown might be part of this strategic plan. And I think we should be planning on that as part of it in case things fall through with WAS. So I really recommend local input, not big town, big dreams, big bills, when we're a small town and we have a small budget. Thank you.
Alder Neal.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just confess to being a little dubious about this proposed effort by this outfit. Just, based on quite a lot of past history before coming into city government and a little bit of it while I'm here, while I've been here. I tend to see too often that these, consulting firms, these professional firms, come with, I'm sorry, it's kind of like what Alder Ryan mentioned, a lot of big ideas. Generally, cookie-cutter ideas that are sitting in their file cabinet, and they just kind of bring it out and put your name on top, and there it is. And they've got a whole file full of mission statements waiting to have you pay for. I think the key element of anything of value that they might do is not giving us a mission statement or, something out of their drawer, but that all-important community engagement factor. I don't know what form they intend to take with community engagement because, $50,000 doesn't go a whole long way when you're talking about a robust community engagement effort. A lot of that money is going to go to just paying their people and paying for their product, which I said, a lot of it is probably just sitting there ready to be, doled out to us. I don't really have a lot of confidence in this in a group from Bangor, Maine. I'd be more happy with somebody from the village of Maine or town of Maine or whatever they call themselves these days, because they know us better and we can get to the meat of the matter quicker with insight based on us, not based on, something that they might have done in, Lancaster, Pennsylvania or something like that. So I'm going to need, I hope the discussion drives me towards feeling better about this, because right now I'm not really in support of it. Thank you.
Alder Watson.
So I think some of the questions can be answered just by reviewing page 69 and 70 of the packet. I mean, when I was talking, I was part of the interview process, which was sort of cool. They really took the time to get to know Wausau, and that's actually part of their stakeholder, engagement part, is they're going to review who we are, right? They're going to talk to us, right? They're going to interview. On page 70, they do talk about conducting orientation sessions, doing interviews with us, right? All of the city leadership, the people that work for the city. They're going to do listening sessions with the community, and especially enlisting the help of a local person, that's going to help engage a lot more of the community too. So I think this is great. I think it's going to be a path forward that we can actually sort of get behind something as a unit, as a council, and we can all buy into this, right? And it's going to create great opportunities for us going forward, sort of just identifying our vision, our shared vision. And I think that's what we need. So thank you.
Thank you. Alder Peckham.
Yeah, I would just like to say very briefly that I do support, I think you had a good review panel. I support the findings of that panel. I think you likely did a very thorough job and were conscientious and kind of reviewing what we need in this community, and I hope we support this and get it going.
All right. Any other discussion? Okay.
Please vote. Motion passes 7-2 and 1 abstention.
Okay.
Do that again? We need to do that again?
It's
It passed.
okay. I accidentally abstained from a vote on the county, and they wouldn't let me redo it, so sorry. It just looks weird in the minutes, so bless you. Okay. We are now moving on to file number 200317, a resolution approving the rules relating to meetings of governmental bodies, city and city employees. I would entertain a motion. Motion by Killian. Do I have a second? Second by Martins. Any discussion here? Okay. I'm not. Oh, Alder Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I had read some of the information about the city employees, but I don't necessarily want to have employees feel that they have to share some reasons why they're not available, whether it's medical or family leave or some other emergencies in that. But that can happen. And with the recent pandemic, I've heard of some neighbors that are having some leg clots and are a very high stroke risk and may end up having to kind of go a lot stress-free and doing some of their duties in that. And I just think that we should have the opportunity for some city employees that can be able to do some of this virtually, be able to do that virtually. I guess if anyone else has more discussion about it, I'd appreciate it too.
I'm not seeing anybody else requesting to speak. Oh, Alder Wadinski.
Sorry, doesn't one of the whereas indicate that that can be accommodated for? That
Allowing-
Mrs. Ryan was talking about?
Yes. Unless excused or permitted to appear virtually by the presiding officer or chair. So if somebody needed to appear remotely, they could ask the chair of the meeting.
So Miss.
Well, I'm concerned is this kind of the employee having to kind of inform every single chair of their scenario, or is there just an option that we can go with instead of having the employee to explain to different chairs, so to keep their privacy?
I don't know if anybody wants to weigh in here from staff side. Okay. Alder Neal.
Well, I think it's just common sense. If I was chairing a committee meeting and a certain topic came up that I would really like the input of a certain staff member, I would ask him or her to, if they would be available to join the meeting and help us out. And if they say, well, yeah, I'd love to, but, I can't, I could probably, dial in, I could find that time if, I'd be on hand to do that. And I think that's very accommodating and flexible. Or perhaps they might say, well, there's another person that could fill in for me or whatever. So the in-person aspect is great, and it's usually more productive, but I don't feel that it's vitally important. And when we have worked around it virtually for quite a long time, and I don't see any problem with having that option in our toolbox.
Okay. Any further discussion? Right, I'm not seeing any.
Please vote. Motion passes 10-0.
Thank you. All right, we're on file number 121017. It's a resolution from the Finance Committee. It's approving an amendment for storage for Stone Mill Historic Sawmill Structure with Andy Johnson. I would entertain a motion by Herbst. Do I have a second? Second by Watson. Any discussion? Alder Martins.
I'll just give a little bit of fill-in because this was in the Finance Committee meeting earlier this evening, and Finance did approve it unanimously, and this is, all we're doing is changing the terms of the contract from a set time period to month, but everything else in the contract stays the same.
Okay, thank you. I'm not seeing anybody else requesting to speak. I think we're ready to vote.
Please vote. Motion passes 10-0.
All right, thank you. We are now into file number 200317. It's a resolution from the Rules Review Committee approving rules relating to meetings of governmental bodies, the dial-in option. I would entertain a motion. Motion by Peckham, second by Killian. Any discussion? Alder Watson.
So I was the lone person voting against it. And my main issue was transparency. I think having the dial-in option for constituents is good because they can dial in. And there are a lot of bells and whistles in WebEx that you can, forcibly mute people and they can't unmute themselves. So if we're worried about people unmuting themselves randomly, we can turn that check off. You can also stop the doorbell. So anytime somebody comes in, you don't have to have the ding, so it's not as distracting. And also, I was sort of looking at the bus schedule. Most of our meetings run at 6:30. Buses don't run after a certain amount. So, if we wanted to be inclusive to everyone, I think the dial-in option, keeping it, is good. So I'm going to vote against this.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? I don't know who got it first, but I'm going to go Alder Peckham.
Yeah, I just had a question on dial-in option. Does look like it requires some staff time, and the space on the paper to explain it isn't anything, but I'm wondering about staff time involved in providing that opportunity at a number of meetings. How much of a burden is that? I saw the the way the vote went. I respect Alder Watson's thoughts on it too, so just thought that might be a balancing factor.
Sure. Clerk Leslie, maybe.
It doesn't take a lot of extra time. It's a matter of just adding a WebEx to the meeting invite, and then who's ever doing that agenda has to include that information. So yes, it's an extra step. Is it a ton of time? No.
Okay. Alder Killian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think Alder Watson brings up some great points, and it doesn't sound, and I was going to ask, but it does not sound like there's really much additional burden to have this option. So I think that the easier we make it for citizens to interface with their local government and be involved in our meetings, the better. And I think that's become a theme and motif of late in various arenas. And I think this will help because just from a marketing standpoint, we know from, say, landing page conversion optimization that there is a direct relationship between the number of response channels that you provide the visitor on the page and the response rate. So the more you provide, the higher the response rate goes. And I would hope that same principle of business and marketing may also apply to our local democracy. So I think it would be positive to keep this in, so I'll be voting against it.
Okay, thank you. Alder Watson.
And to sort of piggyback on Clerk Leslie's comment, I mean, since we voted to allow staff to engage virtually, she's already creating a WebEx for each meeting. So all it is just allowing the public to know what that is. So.
Okay, thank you. Alder Neal.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I will go ahead and support this, for the stated reasons, and hearkening to Alder Killian's statement of not supporting it. We just have to understand that voting in the affirmative means you're voting against the dial-in option. So if you want the dial-in option, you have to vote no.
Yes, thank you for clarifying. President McElhaney.
I just had a question, Leslie. You know how to, part of this was that constant ding, ding, ding in the meetings that are, especially in, I don't think there's much in council, but in the standing committee meetings that are quite distracting. So do you think you could get rid of that?
I do. I talked with Alder Watson, and she showed me what to do, and they also just did an update on WebEx.
Okay.
So I think that we can do that, yes.
Okay, and then the only other, and I will bring this up with the legal issue, is that when we have, my only other question is when we have presenters that come in dial-in, we have heard from our city attorney that she really does not like us asking, who are you, when they're on the phone. Is there a way that you can, have some kind of a plan ahead to know who is who on that dial-in, so we're not asking, can you please state your name, because that was a no-no. And that was some of our conversation through our meeting as well.
So if I send the WebEx to a developer because they've asked, I will know who that is. I see a lot of times what happens is staff just forwards it to somebody, and I don't know who that person is. So I guess the way to address that is if you're going to forward it to a developer to join, let me know who that is and the number so then I can identify them.
Okay, well, that seems like the mayor is sitting there, and she will direct her staff then. Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you. Alder Martins.
Thank you. I just want to, as chair of this committee, and we had quite a discussion on this item, and kind of went around it a bit. And I just wanted to reiterate a couple of things. Eliminating the dial-in option, does not necessarily reduce transparency, because this meeting is streamed on alternate channels, including cable television access and YouTube. So it is available in those variety of formats. The number of people that dial in is potentially been quite limited, although in some of the more contentious meetings that we've had, we have seen more people dial in. But for the most part, I think the committee was feeling that the dial-in option, to allow the public in, was a bit of an extra burden for staff to print that on the agenda every time, but also it was something that was not being fully utilized by the general public, whereas we saw more that were using it through, wishing to stream instead. So it was a mixed vote on this item, but for the most part, I'm going to support eliminating the dial-in option.
Okay, thank you. Alder Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I'd just like to kind of mention again that, yes, we do have YouTube. We do have public access cable channels if you subscribe. if you want to pay for that additional expense. For me, I just have the antenna and being high up on the hill. I don't have to pay for that. I do have YouTube. But we do have, I would think, hundreds of families and seniors that do not use computers. And so doing the dial-up is a way that they may decide to want to get involved and do that. But I understand we have these other advantage for those that can afford these tools, but we are also missing a lot of residents that don't subscribe to the paper, that don't have computer access, and somehow with the phone, they do have that, and that's a way they could engage. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Just a reminder, if you vote yes, you are voting to eliminate the dial-in option, and if you vote no, you are voting to keep the dial-in option. So I think we're ready to go.
Please vote. Motion fails 2-8.
All right, thank you very much. We are now moving on to file number 020432. It's an ordinance from the Rules Review Committee, amending section 2.16.010. Generally, I don't know if you want to give any kind of...
Sure. So a very brief summary of what these are doing. So there's always been, I guess, a question of whether or not our standing rules apply to just the Common Council or the standing committees as well. And so that's basically the main part of all of this, was that it clarifies that most of these rules now will also apply to the standing committees. The other options, or the other changes that were made, were getting rid of gender pronouns. And so it's now alder or a committee member or council member instead of alderman. The one other, another change was the citizen's right to address council, and the term citizen excludes members of the governmental body that are appointed to the council or committee of that committee member that's in session. Due to the fact that we have, I guess, the frequently asked question from the League of Municipalities and Ann's other research that Wisconsin state statute does not allow members of the body to then, I guess, remove themselves from their role as a member of that body and become a citizen member to talk about things that are not on the agenda. And then it also then would be circumventing our rules under Robert's rules that technically a member can only speak on something twice and then 10 minutes each. Otherwise, a motion would need to be passed to allow an extension or an additional time to speak. So that's the reason for that rule change. The other one on Rule 17 under E, basically we were kind of copying what the county does. And so when there's a call of question, normally, that's supposed to then stop debate, but the county, as the mayor has informed us, that if people have queued up to speak, those people will get to speak first before then the question is actually called, and then the main question is put to vote. And so that's what that is then clarifying. And that's really the summary of what the Rules Review Committee has recommended, and then we have made those changes.
Okay, I would entertain a motion before we start debate. Motion by Neal, second by Watson. Any discussion? Alder Watson.
So just one question, I guess, about termination of debate and calling the question. In a lot of our standing committees, we don't use the lights. So if somebody calls the question and then I raise my hand, I think maybe we can turn the light, can we turn the lights on in standing committees so that we can make sure to do that if the question is ever called?
Sounds like that is doable.
Okay, thank you.
And if there's a committee that someone else is clerking, if you just let them know, because they may not know to turn it on.
Okay, thank you. Alder Larson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Did I hear you right, sir, that you're going to get, each alder is going to get 2 attempts to speak for 10 minutes apiece? And when is that going to go into effect if this goes through?
Well, that's technically always been in effect. That's just the Robert's rules that we have by default. Actually, in one of our rules review committees, we talked about codifying that in our rules, but then we just start, I don't know, where do we draw the line of everything that we've adopted from Robert's rules? So technically, that has been in effect. It's up to the chair if they want to, I guess,
Enforce it.
enforce it.
I might have let that slip tonight already.
And exactly, because I was going to say something. But, so that's really what it is. So technically, yes, it's already in enforce, and these rules do not
Because
add
it
anything
hasn't been
like that.
enforced in the past, and I really believe, I don't want to have any alders' speech suppressed, but then there are times where certain alders just go on and on and on and on, and I don't like to see things go into place because of the actions of a select few. But if that is the case, I will go for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I did speak this afternoon with Tara and with Nate about some concerns I have in different areas. And I feel like for me, it's unresolved that Tara is recommending not to make an opinion at this point and to confer with Ann Jacobson. So in my opinion, I think it should be tabled so I can get these other clarifications done, and so we can bring it forward at a future meeting. Thank you.
Okay, Alder Wodinski.
Thank you. I was looking at Rule 17, Manner of Deliberation, Section E, line 4, where it says, any alder or committee member who was in the queue to speak on the issue before the question was called will be allowed to speak before calling the question is voted on. Since calling the question is usually to move the meeting along and stop rehashing what's already been said, should there be a time limit in that response from the alder, or should it be left to go for another 10 minutes? Would a 3-minute response be sufficient to limit it, to move things along?
I guess that's up to this body if you would like to amend it, or if you would like to recommend that the Rules Review Committee consider further.
I would like to make a motion to amend that section to allow 3-minute response
From the
alder that's
remaining people in queue?
Correct.
Okay, so the amendment is Rule 17, Section E. If anybody is remaining in the queue, they get 3 minutes, and that's that. Okay. All right, so now we're talking about this amendment. If there's anybody that would like to talk about this amendment, are you finished, Alder Wodinski?
I am, thank you.
Okay. Alder Larson.
Now, to clarify this is after the question is called?
Yep, question is called. Anybody in the queue gets only 3 minutes instead of the Roberts Rule 10 minutes.
Okay, and that will be in addition to their 2 times speaking?
Well, if the question is called and it's voted to terminate debate, it would be over on that topic.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Point of order?
Yes.
Did we get a second?
No. Got a second from Neil. Thank you. Alder Martins.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think my only concern about this, if, when we call the question to finish debate, to allow those in the queue 3 minutes to state their case, I guess it begs the question is, did those individuals already use their time previously, or if this is their first time to speak or whatnot? So that could limit debate at that point in time. I think my feeling is the intentions of the committee when we talked this through was to allow members when the question is called, that because they put their request in before the question was called, to give them the opportunity to allow debate through. They weren't intending to have the question called when the question was called, but before they put in their request to speak. So I feel that we should allow anybody in the queue at that point to conform to the Robert's Rules of Orders that we've already established earlier.
Okay, Alder Neal.
Thank you, Mayor. I think if memory serves correctly in our discussions, the intent was to, for those 2 10-minute dissertations to be statements of position or, championing a topic, that sort of thing, where, you're really pushing for something one way or another. And then further, though, discussion amongst members present above and beyond. If you've already had 2 10-minute, speeches, if you will, you still can be involved in all the discussions in the form of asking questions or answering questions. You just can't, go on another spiel. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that was a discussion we had, and I'm pretty sure that's the spirit of what we're talking about, correct?
Yeah, that's my recollection too from attending that meeting. And so Lou, the 2-minute or the 2-time 10-minute things, like we said, it's up to the discretion of the chair, but then hopefully that discretion then takes that also into account, that doesn't really count if there's a response or an answer, if that's what the discussion is playing into. The whole point of it is not to curtail discussion, but it's also not so we're here until 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah.
Alder Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. Part of my concern is in the past that we've had some alders that have cut out other alderpersons, and that one concern I do have is no matter what the state says, the Fed's American Disability Act trumps the state. And if there's, it may not be intentional, but for some people with disabilities, if they're interrupted or somehow the question is called and they lose their train of thought of what they wanted to speak about, I do feel that it's a disadvantage and that there are some people that have those issues. And so that I don't want it to be used in a way that's being discriminatory to people with disabilities. But that's why I'm concerned that there should be an option for those that feel that if they are somehow interrupted and lose focus and then cannot really express what they want, that there should be an option for public comments where they can do their 3 minutes uninterrupted. And again, my concern is the feds trump whatever the state says, and I do think we need that resolved. Thank you.
President McElhaney.
Thank you. I want everybody to understand that may not know this is a new committee, but Ann really is there, the entire committee. Nate is there as well. So we have legal advice throughout. They're not even just standing there. They are the discussers with us. So I want everybody to feel okay that this isn't us making up the rules and then we have them for legal advice. They are there within our discussions. And I guess I want to clarify what calling the question is. Calling the question is not going, somebody gets called on a light. There's not going to be somebody yelling in the middle of somebody speaking. They are called on per light and say, I called the question. So nobody should be interrupted in mid-thought with calling the question. I'm going to support this amendment. I think 3 minutes, most of us stay with 3 minutes. I think that's plenty to get our thoughts out. So I'm going to go with the amendment because I believe that by the time the question is called, we've heard from many people multiple times. And so I believe that we have are allowing, the discourse that we want to allow. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So right now we are voting on the amendment to Rule 17 that if the question is called, anybody in the queue may speak, but they get 3 minutes. I think we're ready.
Please vote. Motion passes 7-3.
Okay, now we are on to this ordinance as amended. Are we ready to vote on this or any more comments? I believe we are ready to vote on this ordinance change as amended.
vote. Motion passes 9-1.
All right, thank you. Clerk Leslie and I will find a clock so that we can time all of you. We are now moving on to the amended portion of our agenda. It's file number 201109. It's a resolution from Finance approving the 2021 budget modification for additional environmental testing at 1300 Cleveland Avenue. Maybe I'll have our Department of Public Works Director, Eric, just give a brief update on what this is so that we're all on the same page.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor.
Yep.
This is really our, from our initial soil testing that we did at 1300 Cleveland, which you had authorized, we had found some constituents of concern. There were some exceedances on that site, and so we had our consultant put together a site investigation work plan on what the next process was. We had some conversations with the DNR. There was some additional input as well. We added some additional soil testing on what we initially did with our conversations with the DNR. Matt Thompson with the DNR is comfortable with the proposal right now. The cost of it is $98,500. The majority of that is actually for the soil testing and the lab analysis, but there will be some report writing as well as some engineering and review of those results when they come back. Just a quick, really what it is, once we get these results back, we'll determine with a conversation with the DNR whether we need additional testing or whether we move on to the next phase of the project. So, and this is coming out of the environmental fund like the rest of the work is done, you know, that you've authorized. So this is an addition to the budget for the use of this. Yep.
Thank you. I see that we have some people in queue, but before we have discussion, I would entertain a motion. A motion by Neil, second by Killian. All right, Alder Peckham, you are first.
Yeah, I just, I was hoping to see the word remediation work somewhere in this document, but could you take us through what's likely to happen here? This is further environmental testing.
Yeah, so.
And that's going to, the results of that are going to go to the DNR.
Right. So what we're trying to do right now is from the original tests that were taken, we're trying to delineate those areas where we had found exceedances. And so we have quite a few more holes that we're putting in the ground, a lot more soil testing for this, which is the reason for the cost of this. It's kind of an iterative process. So depending on what we find this time and what those results are, we may move on to discussing remediation, or there may be another round of testing. The thought is probably we'll have another round of testing, maybe not quite as robust as this, but because
the
the site
DNR
is so
could
large.
react to this and say, this is really good, but you just need 6 more areas tested. We need a little more information there.
Correct, yeah. We might be able to delineate some of the areas, but not all of them.
And so when they feel that sufficient testing has been done, then our next step is to develop a proposed remediation plan that also goes to the DNR for approval.
That is correct, yep.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Alder Martins.
Thank you. I just wanted to reiterate that this item did pass earlier this evening at Finance unanimously. And as Eric said, the funding is going to come out of the Environmental Fund, which is a permanent fund. I think it's part of the whole Krause landfill settlements, and the fund is able to sustain the this payment.
Thank you. Alder Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. As part of what was discussed at Finance, too, for those that were not in the area, that Eric had mentioned that that the Cleveland Avenue site might be a possible new location for the Department of Public Works as an option. So at this point, we're asking for additional testing, but we may end up in the future if we want to look at is it for residential use or for commercial use, the DNR may have to give us what additional steps may be required. Isn't that correct, Eric?
Yeah, depending on what the actual end use is going to be, is how the DNR will determine what the minimum requirements for remediation would be. Obviously, if the council wanted to go further than that, they obviously could. So that would be the minimum.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Alder Herbst?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Eric, just to clear something up, I was not aware of, I did agree to vote on finance for this, not a problem. But now, sitting and listening to the fact that 3M would be interested in having this property, now, is this the same property we're talking about that needs to be examined for 98,000 or whatever?
It is. Yep.
It is. So then if 3M is interested, thank you. 3M is interested, why then do we have to spend the money to remediate this? Would that be up to them? Because from what I understand, the fact that they would take care of everything, they just want the property.
Right, not unless the property gets transferred to them and they take that. Right now, we own the property, the city does,
Okay.
and so we are the responsible party. And
Okay.
so we are responsible for following the DNR standards
Perfect.
because contaminants were found. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Killian?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, and
I think your mic needs to be on.
how's that microphone check?
Sound good.
All right, thank you. So I think as those comments, that was, I think, a good question from Alder Herbst and a good explanation from Mr. Lindman. Yes, so this is no longer what we may call an elective. The city was issued a responsible party letter for exceedances of contamination, those that exceeded state regulatory standards. So at that point, I mean, and would you agree, Mr. Lindman, at that point, the Department of Natural Resources, in terms of that RP letter and the request for a site investigation, that's not really something, normally at that point, we could say, no, we don't really care to do that. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, we're following, I believe, a standard regulatory process, and it's great that we're doing this. I think, like Riverside Park, it shows that there can be positive outcomes when the community and government work together on long-standing concerns. In terms of the end use, and it goes to issues like Alder Watson had mentioned earlier about citizen participation, we've already had a great deal of public participation, and as the district representative, I would expect that continues in the appropriate manner, where the district, its representative, and its citizens are kept kind of up to date in a real-time fashion. So I'd rather not learn about surprises at 8:10 at a city council meeting. I think we should take a community-first approach where we keep the citizens informed as well as their representatives. Thank you.
Okay. Alder Peckham?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question for Director Lindman. The strip of land that 3M wants is part of the property, right?
Yeah.
Like on the west edge?
On the western side, yes.
Would you describe that as a quarter of the total area, or how much do they want?
Yeah, I mean, just from memory, yeah, I think that's a pretty good estimate, about 25 to 30% of that property.
Okay, thank you. I was just wondering about that and thought it should be clarified that they don't want the whole parcel.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Alder Larson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we're kind of putting the cart before the horse here because I believe already 3M and Colby had put in RFPs on there that the citizens came forward and spoke out, and as a result, those RFPs were declined. Am I correct in saying that?
They spoke against them, yes.
Yes.
I think really what we're focused on here tonight is if, the city council wants to move ahead with the testing.
I would go ahead and say yes, and take your track without being distracted by any other what might happen in the futures. And I know from, was it that Murphy report that
Mercury
report,
Yep.
suggested that, our Public Works Department is going to need more space too, and that might be a prime spot for it because, it'd be centrally located and you're not disturbing any neighborhoods, running trucks up and down neighborhoods. But I guess I would stay first and foremost, stay focused on what you need to do today. Thank you.
Thank you. I see that Alder Peckham is requested to speak for a third time. If there is no objection, I will allow it.
It's a good question.
Yep, I don't hear any objection, so go ahead.
Thank you all. I'm not sure who would answer this best, Director Lindman or possibly Attorney Miller, but has there been any pursuit of the idea that Connor Forest Industries or its legacy entity or whatever it is could be held liable for any of these costs?
I think there's always a potential there. My conversations with Matt Thompson with the DNR has been that based on the results that we have so far, it's really categorized as historic fill and not necessarily related back to operations that were there. Now, this next round of testing might change that. I mean, we might find something different, but that's his initial reaction along with his team at this point. But again, we're going to do another round of quite robust testing, so we may have some other results. So.
Does it count if I speak, just do this?
That looks good. Thank you. All right, I'm not seeing any. Oh, Alder Killian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One more question for Mr. Lindman. I think this would fall under testing considerations on the agenda here. In terms of that historic fill, has it been ruled out, with certainty that, because reportedly much of that came from 3M Company at one time, so has it been ruled out with certainty that some of the PAHs, some of that contamination in the fill did not come from 3M fill? Are we certain of that yet?
No, I don't think anything's been ruled out right now, Tom.
That was my understanding, too. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, I'm not seeing any other requests to speak, so I think we are ready to vote on this.
Please vote.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion passes 10-0.
All right, thank you very much. We are moving on to file number 210707. It's a resolution from HR authorizing the reclassification of a stockroom specialist position to parts specialist. I see that our HR director has joined us. I don't know if you want to give us any background, so we're all on the same page. But I would welcome that before I entertain a motion.
Sure, I can provide some quick background. We're largely reclassifying this position based on advice from our fleet study, which wanted to see this position have a little bit more independence and responsibility. We are losing a lot of times with mechanics coming in and doing some parts work for us, so this would keep them on the floor doing mechanic work and have somebody else taking care of these parts responsibilities. We also have, it'll add provided security too, because it'll be one person accessing the parts and we don't have to worry about keeping track of inventory. It'll be easier and all sorts of things like that. So that's largely what is driving this change. We're bringing it up, I want to say 2 salary grades, and that reflects those responsibilities.
Thank you. I guess at this point I would entertain a motion. Motion by Wadinsky, second by Larson. Any discussion here? I am not seeing any. I think we're ready to vote.
Please vote. Motion passes 10-0.
All right, thank you. Last item on our agenda, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. I see 2 folks pointing at each other. I will take a motion by Watson, second by Wadinsky. Any opposition? We are adjourned. Thank you very much.